Skill development has been on a lot of people's minds recently. It seems like a lot of people have found a new obsession of being really good at some specific skills, whether it be chess, Rubik's cubing, speed typing, archery, basketball, rhythm games, or even sales, marketing, or pen spinning. This video should provide an insight on universal things everyone should know about if they wish to improve their skills. Throughout my time being obsessed with skill improvement and getting better at things, I've learned some universal things that could be applied to almost any skill-related subject. I'll also be referencing some scientific data and studies showing how certain things work to speed up skill development. This video will cover 3 main words that all start with P, that are essential to almost any skill. Combining my personal experience with scientific evidence, I've come up with deep explanations behind every word, so you should be able to pull some kind of value from this, no matter where you are at now in your journey of skill development. With mastery of these 3 sub-skills, mastering any skill should be exponentially easier and take far less time. Now enough of your time, let's go on to the actual video. The first P word is practice, probably the most obvious one on this list when it comes to skill improvement, but what might not be so obvious is how to actually practice for improvement. If you watched some of my previous videos on practice, you may be pretty familiar with some general ideas when it comes to skill improvement, but I'll try and recap the most important ideas and add a few new ones I've learned. First of all, as Andrew Huberman says, improvement from practice is the difference in correctly correlated dopamine levels. What does this mean? First of all, we need to understand what dopamine really is. Dopamine is basically a neurotransmitter that is responsible for reward, motivation, and pleasure. It's also responsible for many other things, but these are the most important when looking at skill improvement and learning. When practicing anything, there's normally either a correct way of doing something while also an incorrect way. When we correctly do something we've been trying to do, dopamine is released, and when we fail at the task, it's unaffected. Since improvement is directly correlated with the difference in the spikes of dopamine, this basically means the more you enjoy something, while feeling dissatisfied and annoyed at failing, the faster you will improve. This works because your brain subconsciously reinforces the correct way of doing the thing you're practicing while you're not doing anything, and specifically does this during sleep. Those that increase their dopamine levels before practicing, such as by music or medication, will not improve as fast as those who have their levels unaffected. Also, those who level out their dopamine while practicing will not improve as fast as those who don't. This explains why if you're not focused while practicing, you will not improve nearly as much. If you're focusing on music you're listening to, and you feel good from the music when you fail at the task, this means you're actually reinforcing bad habits. Compare this to the monk who meditated right beforehand and is extremely present in their practice. They'll improve at an exponential rate because their peaks and dips in dopamine will be extremely accurate to their failing and successes. Another important thing you can immediately do after practicing is to take a 5 to 10 minute breather. Meditating will be even better to further cement the effects. Once you're not messing up your dopamine levels, the most important thing about practicing for improvement is repetition. Do the thing you want to improve at as much as you can to speedrun progress. Sure, you need breaks, but a lot of people think they should happen a lot more frequently than they actually should. If your focus is messed up from instant gratification and seeking dopamine, then you won't be able to focus on your practice for nearly as long. But when you're practicing good habits and have a healthy level of dopamine, then you'll be able to focus much longer. A good amount of time for deep focused work is to aim for about 90 minutes. If you do notice yourself losing focus before that time, however, some people have said to stop immediately because you'll just be practicing bad habits if you continue. Now on to the next P word, and that is patience. Once you have good practice habits, it's important to keep going no matter what and stay consistent. Even if you don't see immediate improvement, or if what you're doing seems extremely boring, be patient. Know that your hard work will pay off eventually. If everyone stopped practicing when they didn't see improvement, they would never improve. Sometimes improvement is subtle, and it's only after a while that you might actually see improvement. For example, if you didn't already know, I'm a pen spinner, so I'll use my practice as an example. I would choose one linkage to practice every day for a week or 2, and at the end of every day, I would calculate the successes versus failure rate. For example, I would only get 0 to 3 successes out of 30 tries for 7 days straight, and it was only on the 8th day did I see any improvement. And to be honest, it felt like I didn't improve at all when actually performing the linkage. So if it feels like you're not improving at all, and it's been a few weeks or even a couple months, try recording your progress. It may be somewhat refreshing to know that you actually are improving. If you're not improving as fast as you would like, readjust your practice habits and try again. This is all skill improvement is in the long term. Try different things to see what works and what doesn't. Then when you found something that does work, stick with it and make small adjustments from then on until you get your desired improvement. Even then, you can still change things in the long term if you're going to be at this for a while. Now let's look at the last P word, and that is persistence. Once you have good practice habits and patience, it's important to stick with it even if you think it's not working, because if it actually is following a good structure, and you do it for long enough, it will work. People that are the best at what they do are the best because they've been doing it for the longest. Taking from one of my previous videos, competition at the top is insane, the top 1% is fairly easy to get into within your first year or so of what you're doing, if you have your practice and patience down, depending on what you're doing. But to get into the top 0.01%, it takes an insane amount of time. Take the monkey type 1-minute speed test graph for example. The top 1% speed is 150 to 159 words per minute, but immediately after, the speed seemed to exponentially increase. The top 1% of the top 1% is nearly 130 words per minute, larger than the lower of the 1%. How do you think this is? Since the power law of practice shows that the more you practice something, the slower the improvement is, there could be some exponential growth immediately after reaching the top 1% in terms of effort over skill. But more than likely, even if this is, you still manage to spend an insane amount of time dedicated to your craft to offset this decrease in improvement. That's why it seems like the people at the top of what they do seem to dedicate their entire lives to it. Now, I'm not saying everyone should try to be the best at what they want to improve at, but I'm just saying that once everything else is that you're practicing well and patient enough to know that improvement takes time, the only thing left is to persevere through the hard times and stick with it even when it feels like the world is going against you. Because if you stick with it for long enough, it will pay off and you will improve, because they quit long before you stopped. And those have been the 3 P words of skill improvement. Remember, one is not complete without the other. If you made it this far, I just want to thank you, because normally less than a few percentage of people actually make it to the end. Before you leave, just let me tell you about my practice and pen sitting merch. I've always wanted a decent practice design on some kind of clothing, and I couldn't find any, so I decided to make my own. There's also some pen sitting merch if you're a regular viewer of mine, but since this is about skill improvement and practice, I thought it was only fitting to show the practice merch. The link will be in the description as well. Thanks for watching. See you next time.